Sound everyone, welcome to part 2. So we've covered most of Operator and Punisher mode in part 1, so now we're going to move on to the rest of the eccentricities of Prime mode, and also how to properly block and counter in this game, both in and out of Punisher mode, by the way. So enjoy! So in order to block in Punisher mode, you just hold down the R1 button and you will automatically counter any melee attack. You won't be able to absorb any projectiles like bullets or magic, but you'll be able to automatically retaliate against any melee attack by holding down the R1 button, and then you'll automatically counter them. And also, on top of that, after you have retaliated with the Buster Sword in Punisher mode, you can then press triangle to do that blade dance through your enemy that we talked about in the Prime mode section, where you can take your finger off the attack button after attacking a bit and slide through the enemy. Well, here you can do it straight after countering with a Punisher mode block and counter, and then pressing triangle afterward. And last but not least for Punisher mode, while you're in Operator mode, you can intercept an incoming melee attack by pressing the triangle button to block, as if you're pressing R1 while in Punisher mode. And if you catch someone as they're about to attack you with a melee attack by pressing the triangle button, it will counter them as if you were in Punisher mode, while also switching you to Punisher mode. I'll show you on the screen at the moment so you know what I'm talking about, but yeah, it's a very cool way you can do it. Okay, now that's both Operator mode and Punisher mode taken care of. Now, the only thing left to talk about is Cloud's abilities. We've just covered the most important of his new abilities, with Prime mode just being spoken about in the last section, so now we will move on to the rest of his abilities, starting with Disorder. Okay, so the next ability we're going to cover is Disorder. So there are actually a few different versions of this move. You'll have one version that you use on the ground while in Prime mode or Punisher mode, another version that you have on the ground that you use while in Operator mode to go into Punisher or Prime mode, and then you also have a version you use exclusively in the air, which is just going to be the version you use in Punisher mode on the ground, but instead of it excelling you into the air, you're just going to do it to remain airborne for a little bit longer. Now, Disorder is basically used in order to continue your combo, deal a chunk of damage, while also changing you from Operator to Punisher mode, or Punisher mode to Operator mode. And also, when you connect with Disorder, no matter which version of the move you use, you will also gain back a chunk of your ATB, so it's almost like you're using the move for free, which is pretty cool. Okay, so next up, another really important move in Cloud's repertoire is Counter Stance. Now, this ability is very much like holding down the guard and counter button in Punisher mode, except this ability has a few key differences with it. So before I point out the differences between Punisher mode and Counter Stance, let me just show you that you can actually alternate between a Punisher mode block and counter into a Counter Stance, which is a really powerful and effective way to utilize the ability. Now, the differences from its Punisher mode counterpart is that it's going to be dealing a lot more damage than what you do in Punisher mode with the counter stance ability, and also you can activate it and pull it off at any range. You're going to mostly want to be using it to counter against melee attacks. However, as I'm about to show you, you can not only use it in the air, but you can also use it to counter projectiles, neither of which you can do with your Punisher mode block and counter. As I said, with counter stance, you can block and counter your enemy from any distance, and I'm going to show you an example of that right now. Okay, now I already mechanically showed you how this clip worked earlier when I was gloating about it, so I won't bore you with that again. I just wanted to show you it to illustrate the fact that when I pulled off this counter stance win, it was not with a melee strike from Sephiroth, it was with one of his projectiles from Zanshin. So And it was not only me utilizing the ability in the air, but it was also me utilizing the ability to absorb a projectile and then close the distance for the win. As you can see, it literally saved my life there. And that is something that Punisher mode block and counter simply cannot do, and is one of the many reasons that you should be using counter stance. Okay, I promise I'll stop now. No more milking that clip. Okay, now for the rest of his abilities, the damage dealing abilities. First up here we've got Focus Thrust, used on the ground to close distance and also to build the enemy's pressure meter up. Whenever you see it say pressured underneath your enemy's health bar, just use Focus Thrust and it will increase their pressure bar exponentially. Next up is one of my favourites, classic limit break from the original game. You've got Braver. You can use this ability either on the ground or in the air, and if you actually use it from the air to the ground, you'll deal a bit more damage. Now, Cloud's going to twist in the air and slam the ground in front of him. Next up, you've got Triple Slash. This you can use either on the ground or in the air as well. And if there's only one enemy, you're going to slash at them 3 times. But if there's multiple enemies on the field, then you'll slash one enemy and then zip to another one and slash them. As a matter of fact, the more enemies you slash in your individual slashes, you will deal more damage times the amount of enemies you hit in your slashes. So the more enemies you hit, the more damage you'll do. Next up is another new ability for Cloud in Firebolt Blade. Usable on either the ground or already in the air, you'll fly towards your enemy, holding your blade out and slashing in front of you, as you coat your blade in both electricity and then fire, and dealing the appropriate elemental affinity damage if the enemy you're attacking is weak to either electricity or fire, of course. Next up is another updated limit from the original game, brought back as an ability for this game. This time it's a Blade Beam brought back as Burst. Now this move sort of works like an upgraded Braver, except it can only be used on the ground, and it's going to take an extra second or two to come out, except the trade-off is that Cloud's going to twist in the air, slam the ground in front of him, and at the end you're going to let out a total of 5 Mako beams that are going to extend out in front of you and hit any enemies at quite some range, to be fair. I still prefer Braver because you can use it in the air and it comes out quicker, but I do like to hit Blade Burst every so often, as it is a very satisfying ability to pull off. Okay, Cloud's last regular weapon ability is a good one, Infinity End. So, this one takes 2 ATB charges rather than 1, and Cloud will spin around, gain momentum, and slam the ground in front of him, dealing a lot of damage to one or many enemies in front of you. As you can see, it's strong enough to take out most minor enemies, and it is also strong enough to deal a lot of damage to whatever big enemy or boss you manage to pull this bullshit off on. Now, as you can see, it takes a while to charge and wind this ability up, so make sure you only use it if you've got a spare minute and you're sure you won't be hit. Now, last but certainly not least is Cloud's special learned ability, Aerial Onslaught. I almost think about this as like a little mini Omni Slash that we get to tide us over until the 3rd game. So, now, this ability is only usable from the air, so you're going to want to use one of the 3 ways I told you to get into the air. Either use the Blade Beam Dash, the Prime Mode Triangle Press, or the Disorder to get you into the air, and then unleash this tied to one of your shortcut modes I recommend. So yeah, like I said, it's like a little mini Omni Slash. Cloud will briefly charge up his sword behind his back, and then unleash a multitude of slashes in front of you, ending with a powerful downward slash. Incredibly satisfying ability to pull off easily. Okay, so that's Operator and Punisher mode done. That's all of his main abilities done. And now we're going to move on to the last thing I want to showcase, and that's his limit breaks for this game. Starting off here, we have the ever classic Cross Slash. This is your starting limit and the one that you will always be able to perform, even without using any synergy abilities to raise your limit level.
Let's dance, asshole!
I'm sorry guys, that's my favourite voice line from the whole game, it's fucking brilliant. Anyway, next here is Ascension. It's cool, I sort of feel like this limit break is sort of a mashup of the OG's Climb Hazard limit break and the Omni Slash limit break, sort of a little bit of both of them, ending with that giant upward slash that you always get in Climb Hazard, one of my favourites for sure. Okay, and last but not least is Cloud's brand new level 3 limit break for this new game, which is Finishing Touch. This is another remake of an original limit break that Cloud had from the OG game, and it's remade perfectly for this game if I do say so. So now we've gone through all of Cloud's abilities and limit breaks, I thought I'd just take a second to break down the build that I run on Cloud, typically speaking. So if I'm not actually augmenting the materia to pick on a certain elemental weakness of a certain enemy, then this is the setup that I'm going to be typically running with Cloud. Weapon, armor, accessory, and materia wise. Okay, so starting off here, for my weapon I use the Buster Sword. I'm not gonna lie, the most of the reason I use it is just because it's iconic and it looks sick, but I use it also because I go for more of a melee build. But if you want to go for more of a magic build, you can go for the Ruin Blade, or if you want to go for like a mixture of melee and magic, then go for the Slipstream Saber. But I'm gonna stick with the Buster Sword just because I love the way it looks. Okay, next up for armor, I've got the Cetrium Bracer, because it's got the most defense and the most materia slots. And for the item, if you're going to go offensive, it's the Gotten Damarung to get your limit at the beginning, or if you want to go defensive, then it's the Ribbon. Okay, that's weapon, armor, and accessory done. Now on to the materia. Best part. So generally for Cloud, I run a HP and MP absorption setup with the Petrify materia, and I also have the Petrify and Poison materia on magic focus, just so you gain back as much HP and as much MP as possible. Next we have the defensive materia with steadfast block materia and precision defense focus. They do exactly what they say on the tin. And after that we move into the stat increases. We've got magic up and speed up. You can replace either one of them with attack up if you wish. After that we have the ATB setup with the first strike materia and the ATB boost materia. And we also have healing, so Cloud can heal other people, and the enemy skill materia, which adds a 5% bonus to each of your stats and also gives you access to the enemy abilities, of course. Now for my summon materia, I've got Bahamut. That's just because Bahamut Arisen is my favourite in this game. You can switch it out for Odin or Gilgamesh, but I prefer Bahamut and I like the stat increases you get with him. Okay, last up here we've got my weapon stat bonuses for the Buster Sword. So you got weapon ability damage plus 5%, Reprieve, which is like Kingdom Hearts second chance once more. You land at 1 HP rather than dying once. Enhanced physical guards, you get a 5% bonus to all your damage reduction, physical damage while you're guarding. And then for your last one, you've got improved Punisher, so you get a Punisher mode strong attack increase by 10%. Okay, and that's pretty much it for how I would technically build Cloud. Like I said, there's a few bosses in the game that I would switch out some materia for an elemental bonus against them, but other than that, this is typically how I would build him for going in to get clips or just to have a bit of fun while playing him. Okay, well, that's pretty much everything that I wanted to showcase on how to best utilize Cloud in Rebirth, and I hope I taught you guys something new. Thank you to everyone that stuck around until now. I hope that you enjoyed watching the video, but I hope you don't mind me taking another minute of your time just to say that I've wanted to start putting out videos on FF7 and other series that I enjoy for quite a long while now, but I think the best way I can say it is that fear has held me back several times. But as I've recently had a number of really positive changes in my life, I thought that why not do another one and force myself to get a video out there and finally start making videos and doing what I want to do. So this is meant to be yet another positive uptake for my life, if you will. Like I said, I just wanted to make this video in order to get myself out there, dip my feet in the water, so to speak, and finally beat that fear, you know? But the next video I want to make is, like I said, going to be a nice introspective piece on Jenova and Sephiroth and the relationship that they share, or lack thereof, I should say. But for those of you that want to provide any constructive criticism, like I said, this is the first video that I've fully made and edited and got out there, so any criticism, constructive or otherwise, would be appreciated. For those of you that do that, thank you very much, and for those of you that stick around to see the next video, I look forward to seeing you there, and thank you all for your time. Have a good day, guys. Take it easy.